Is the 2:30 Tuesday show from awesomone.com, PGA edition, as always. Ben Raz and myself with Fantasy Golf Man, Tim Frank. What did you we got a little break last week. We didn't have a show. You don't do the Turkish Open. I can speak for you there. How did you enjoy the off season?
It was nice. The 1 week off season was good. I needed a break before this event because this is like, one of my favorite events of the year. So it's like kind of like the week off before the Super Bowl or something. You get prepped. I got an extra week of working. Looking at flyovers of the course and approximating approach distances and whatnot. So I'm ready to go.
That's what we do here. But again, we haven't really talked about this because I haven't talked to you because we've missed the show. You had a pretty good week in life. We got Brendan Todd wins.
Yeah.
Minnesota football wins.
Oh man. This is it. National. We want LSU up here.
Yeah,
here in Minneapolis. Bring it on. Yeah, that was a heck of a game. They played great. I was not expecting that, to be honest with you. I thought they had a chance, but they played really well. It was yeah.
I told you before the game. What did I say? Minnesota.
Yes. Yeah, Gophers. Yeah, they were
Gophers.
They were getting like 6 or 7 too. That was a lot of points.
Yes, sir. So yeah, things are good. They're trending in the right direction. We're done with the Asian swing. We're not in America. We're in Mexico for Mayakoba, which, it's not the best tournament. We don't have Shot Tracker, but at the same time, we're starting to get back into the flow of things. Pretty reasonable field. Of course, we've seen a lot at least, and that's stuff that we do like. I want to say before we get into it, sponsor of the show, as always, Fantasy Draft, still running their giant rake-free tournaments. Adds up quickly. We talk about this on all the shows because it is really important. 100% of the entry fees go into those prize pools. We have a lot of cool things going on. They're running large NFL contests. They have, of course, the other sports. So go check that out. If you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code AWESOMO, 7-day free trial. You can go check it out. And like I said, I think you'll see how much of a difference rake-free format makes. So certainly encourage that. But I also encourage you to listen to the knowledge that Tim is going to drop on the Mayakoba, because it is true. I know you love this tournament. You told me before things, you said El Chameleon. That means the chameleon in Spanish. You got all the knowledge that we need here to succeed. So right off the top, what do you make of the week?
Yeah, so, pretty decent field, for a fall series event. But yeah, like you said, they've played this event here for many years. And, this is one of the few places, we talked, I think, on the last show about how the majority of courses are really kind of right down the middle. They don't really favor one side or the other. But I think this is one of the few courses that really it favors the shorter hitters. And, we don't have shot link data, but it's just going back and looking at the guys who've won here, the guys who've contended here. Last year, Kuchar, Danny Lee, Spawn. The year before was won by Kazire. We had Pat Perez, Russell Knox. We had a 3-way playoff between Graham McDowell, Jason Bone, and Russell Knox. Brian Gay's won here. Johnson Wagner's won here. It's just like year after year after year, it's like the same types of players at the top of the leaderboard. Really similar to like an RBC Heritage. So this is one of the few courses, it takes the driver out of the player's hands for the most part. I think more reliance on approach game, maybe some short game. But yeah, this is just one of the places where the short hitters thrive, along with Harbor Town, along with places like Colonial. So there's a definite type here, which is interesting because all the guys at the top have a definite type too, and it doesn't fit this course. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how people handle that. But yeah, they've got a lot of rain here. I think it's going to be playing soft. Kind of a scoring environment. We've seen 20 under, 18 under, somewhere around there is the winning score. It's going to give up a lot of birdies and eagles. So yeah, I think it's really, I just think like Harbor Town, I think it's, very similar to that type of track.
It is pretty polarizing. It's not to say, I was thinking about this today. I was trying to think of an analogy, and I was kind of brought to baseball of all things about you have a split lefty versus lefty. Yeah, it's a horrible situation. It doesn't mean the guy bats zero, though. A bomber could win this, of course. It's just long-term, it's not the ideal fit. It really does negate the advantage these guys will have with the distance. There's no doubt about it. And we'll see, because what struck me was what you said at the end there. The guys up top, most of them their best club is going to be neutralized, and that's really interesting. This is not the type of track where I think of sign me up for Hovland. But, talent may win out. Par 71, nothing too crazy from what I've seen. You need to keep it in the fairway. There's jungle, there's water. You don't want to be messing around down there. But other than that, I mean, I think it's going to be very soft. It looks like they got a ton of rain already. There's some rain in the forecast. So it may play a little longer, but again, this is a second shot golf course where distance is not going to be hugely important.
Yeah, and I mean, we always say that course fit is more important. Like the farther down the pricing list you go, the elite players can win anywhere. So yeah, it's going to be kind of a dance on how you want to handle this course fit. With the best players in the world are all long hitters, so we're going to have to go somewhere. We're going to have to pay up for someone. I just thought it was interesting. Like a guy like Charlie Hoffman won here. Definitely doesn't fit this type of course, and then he missed the next 4 cuts here. So it's kind of like,
right.
Yeah, they can get it done. But yeah, it's just not the type of player that I'm looking for. But we're going to have to pay up for someone. I mean, we're not going to play Brian Gay 6 times and leave $8K on the table.
Yeah, someone may do that, but not me. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll get into it because you're right. We're gonna have to allocate some. A lot of people will go balanced, but it's not to say we can just omit these guys by any stretch. So we lead it off with we could do a whole show on Matt Kuchar, Mayakoba. He is the most expensive option. I do want to dive into that just a bit, and then I'll get to these other guys. You think I assume they don't like boo people in golf. That just never happens, even when it should. He'll get a normal reception, right?
I would assume so, but he just seems oblivious to it anyway. Like I honestly think that he could show up and they would have signs that say like "Kill Matt Kuchar," and he would just be smiling and like, "Oh shucks, these guys are so funny." And it's like,
yeah. I mean, the whole situation with the toucan is quite a read. I mentioned that in my article, but if we don't go to him, and he has not played, that's one thing that is a huge red flag for me. We've got Hovland, Day, Tony, and Billy Ho. So not the best, not the worst. It's more red flags than go signs for me up here. What do you say if you have to organize these guys?
I'd say yikes, to be honest with you. I think, well, the first thing that sticks out to me is if you look at the outright odds of these guys, we have Kuchar, Hovland, and Day. They're at 18-1, which is really bad odds for guys that are 11K plus. So that should stick out right off the top. Normally, we see these guys up here maybe in the 6-1, 8-1 range. So it's like you're only getting, I mean, after you take out the juice that Vegas puts in, you're getting like less than 5% win equity with any of these guys. And that's a tough pill to swallow when you're spending 11-4, 11-2, and 11K. Kuchar, the course fits. Obviously, he's a great course fit here. We just haven't seen him in a long time. Like you said, Hovland, this just isn't the place where you're going to, rip drivers. So it's kind of hard to get behind him. He's cooled off a little bit, 41st and 31st in his last 2. And Day at 11K just kind of seems egregious. So I'm not a fan of any of those guys. I guess I would go down to Finau at 10-6, so I think will be pretty popular. Didn't play well on the Asian swing, 53rd and 59th. But, he was good prior to that, 9th and 10th. I think it was the Shriners and the Alfred Dunhill Links. And he's a guy that's played – we've seen him play shorter courses and do pretty well for a bomber. I think he does pretty well when he can dial it down. A little bit like Woodland. I'm not quite as good in that regard, but we've seen him play courses like this fairly well. So I like Finau. Horschel, I think the course fit is good, but it just seems egregious to pay 10-2 for him. But he's a guy that I could see at super low ownership actually play well here in a decent course fit.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree. I think Finau is going to be pretty popular. We'll monitor that as we get closer to lock. For me, just with the Asian swing in general, if my guys played it, I think that's a slight positive. If they played terrible, I still think it's not a huge deal. I just like that they got some reps in, and I'm kind of leading into how I'm going to try to justify. I think Jason Day, for me, if I had to pick one of these guys, would be where I'd go. He wasn't great over there. He wasn't terrible, but he's played a bit. Should be able to negate the spraying by clubbing down here. We know historically his short game is fantastic. Now, lately it has not been. I'm willing to chalk that up as just an outlier. It's unexplainable to me why that would happen, but that's what I have really. I really am concerned with a guy like Hovland. I get the pedigree, I get the talent, not a great course fit. I don't really have interest in Billy Ho. Kuchar hasn't played in months. That's a big red flag for me. So by process of elimination, really, I feel most comfortable with Jason Day, as ironic as that sounds.
Yeah, it's just tough for me with Day. Like the T22 and T31 kind of look good on paper, but then when you take into account it was a 78 player field, it was like not, not too much better than just average finishes. So I don't know. I just don't feel like he's done much to warrant that 11K price tag besides just the name recognition. We know him from years past where he's been one of the best golfers in the world. But I mean, it's tough up here. It really is. I don't feel comfortable playing any of these guys. I think the optimal build is going to be very balanced. Just like I said, mainly because you're just not getting any win equity for the price. And that's a problem for me.
No doubt. And it's just, I think it's such an interesting dynamic. The theme of this week clearly is that there's almost an inverse correlation between the highest priced guys and their skill set to this course. Like, even if I would say, okay, we'll bump down a bit. Well, the next guy on the list is Neiman. And then you have CH3 and Wise. Those are not guys that, I think of them, they're right in the bucket of lean on the driver as well. So even going balanced, like, what are you going to start with, Russell Knox? I don't plan to really do that.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I built some lineups that did start with Russell Knox just because. Yeah, I mean it's pretty pathetic. But like you said, yeah, you don't get down to anyone that seems like a good course fit until you hit Knox at 9,300. I like Knox. The problem that I have with him is I think the course history is jacking his price up. At 9,300, ninth, third, and second here the last 3 years. He was 11th at the Bermuda Championship, which actually was a pretty similar course to this.
It was, yeah.
If you looked at the guys that fared well there, it was a lot of guys who play well on short tracks, play well on Bermuda greens. This is the Paspalum greens. I don't think that at the top. I think here the old CIMB used Paspalum. It's similar to Bermuda, but it's kind of a unique putting surface. But yeah, I mean, I like Knox because I think the course fit is great, but I just think you're paying a couple hundred more than you should. And we'll get to some guys farther down the list that I would equate to be similar players as Knox who maybe just don't have a good course history, and you're getting a discount. But yeah, the course fit is great. The course history is great with Knox. 9,300 seems a little spendy though.
It does. But this is, I know it's splitting hairs with course history, but with someone like Knox, I think we can confidently say it's not just noise here. You look at his results at Heritage. He has a runner up there. You look at the Honda, a runner up there and a third. He has a type of course that he excels at, and this is it. It's not just a guy where we have a couple of outlier finishes at the OHL here, and we're like, oh, he likes short tracks. Knox really does. Playing well in Bermuda, I know that's a garbage field, but still, I definitely have interest. I'm just going to try to get him as my second man in and hope that I can find enough value. What about Scheffler? He's someone played well in Bermuda. He should have. He's one of the best in that field every day of the week. I have no problem with him. The price is kind of, I don't want to say dissipated, but he's certainly not up there to the premium level. 9,100 on DraftKings, very reasonable.
No, yeah, I love Scheffler as well. He seems like a logical place to go. Like you said, played well in Bermuda. We have the same course fit questions with him as we do at the guys at the top, but the difference is you're getting a $2,100 discount between him and Hovland, which is crazy. I just don't think the disparity in talent is that great. There might not be any disparity in talent. Scheffler could be every bit as good as Hovland, if not better. We saw Scheffler play well in Bermuda on a similar type of course. The ball striking has been phenomenal. And it's just a more palatable price to me, even if we don't like the course fit. It's one thing if you don't like the course fit and you're paying a reasonable price tag. It's a problem for me when I don't like the course fit and it's like we're jamming in like 11K golfers. That's where the problem comes for me. So yeah, I like Scheffler a lot. I think he'll be very popular though.
He will. I mean, he's just, when he's in this price, he's viable in all formats. He can be your second man in. I always try to kind of, it's hard to articulate it, but there are certain guys at certain price tags where I feel like there's overlap. And what I mean by that is Scheffler is an easy second man in. He's also an against the grain first man in. So he gets double ownership in a lot of builds. And that really does jack up his price, as it should. He's in a really nice spot. Working down just a little bit, we've got Lanto. I mean, what is going on here? We've got Lanto at 9K, Grillo, Kistner, Cameron Champ, not the ideal fit. Keegan, Ches, pretty interesting range. I actually think one I kind of like. We got to start with Grillo. I mean, we've just got to. He makes a fine play, but man, another course history bump here.
I can't do it, man. It's the same thing. You know, we don't have stats from the Asian Tour, T30, T26. I'm sorry, not the Asian Tour, the Asian Swing. But it just feels like you're going to get like a T30 out of him at best, no matter how much he is. I don't know. The upside just doesn't seem to have been there recently. If we had stats from what he did at the Zozo and the CJ Cup, maybe that would warrant us going there. But again, at 8,900, the course history, I think, is bumping that price up. 15th, 9th, and 10th is 3 starts here, which makes sense. It's a perfect course fit. But for me, Kistner at 8,800, I just, so far more likely to win this event than Grillo. And he has an awful course history, which makes no sense because he's very similar to Knox. I mean, all the places that Knox has played well, Harbor Town, short track specialist, TPC Sawgrass, he was in a playoff there, Colonial, all the places that you would think Knox would play well. Kistner has played well too. He just hasn't played well here, which makes no sense. Cut, T60, cut. I love Kistner because, I mean, I know that this course fits him. I don't really care that the course history is bad, and I think, honestly, it's keeping his price down. I mean, there's a $600 difference between him and Knox, and I think Kisner's a better golfer than Knox is.
No doubt. That is something that I always preach, and I know you do too. Separate the course history from the results to an extent, and try to see if there's a reason. We've determined with someone like Knox, it makes total sense. There is, unless someone has it in chat, feel free. I don't see any reason why Kistner would not play well here in a vacuum. He has not in the past. We don't have the strokes gained, but I will just say, as you talked about, this is a perfect setup for a guy that's super talented. I really don't get it. And I think there's still a lot of noise there. I wouldn't be stunned to see him play well here, and it's going to be a discount in ownership because people are deterred. No one wants to click a guy and you look and you say, wow, he just misses the cut every year here. That's not a great feeling, but I can justify it. I mean, me, I'll search for anything to say Grillo's in play, but do you think the awkward putting surface kind of marginalizes putting in general here?
I honestly don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I don't see anything that would lead me to believe that. If you're just looking for reasons to play him.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so it's really slow greens and it's a weird surface. To me, when you have atypical layouts like that, I feel like the putting generally is more condensed. Like, I don't think it brings out the best putters by any stretch, and that can only help Grillo.
He's just in a price range where there's a lot of guys, when you look at Knox, Scheffler, Kistner, he's kind of in a loaded range, and I'm just scarred from playing him, I think.
That's really a very reasonable take. And you know what, the point with Grillo, to speak to that though, even if he plays okay, more certainly in recent history, you're getting away with not playing him. Like, if he comes in 20th, he's not going to kill your lineups, but if you fade him, what happens? Nothing. It's not a big deal. You live to fight another day. And if you pivot a 1v1 on some of these other guys, the upside is there for a guy like Kiz, even if there is risk. Working down, though, what do you make of these next batch? I don't have a ton to say about guys like Champ, Keegan. Ches, I think, fits the course well, but 8,500, I'm not super into him either at this point. Do you have a strong take on a guy like Ches or any of these guys?
Not really. Kind of going down. I mean, I think your boy Poston at 8,200 is a decent play. And then at flat 8K, I think Harris English. And I mean, he's going to be chalky, but he's just, I mean, everything lines up so well for him at flat 8K. He's 4 starts this year in the swing season. 3 of them have been T6 or better. The ball striking has been off the charts, plus 1.6 in the ball striking. He has a win here. His best finishes of his career, I looked on Official World Golf Ranking, was a win at St. Jude, a second at Colonial, and the win here. So he tends to do well at these shorter Bermuda. I'm going to call this Bermuda. I'm going to keep calling it Bermuda because it's similar. But these short Bermuda tracks, I mean, I think he's going to be insanely popular at 8K, but I just think he's probably the best play on the board.
He has a really bizarro course history as well. A win and then just pretty horrible after that. Now, part of that though,
he's been horrible that whole. I think he's been horrible for 5 years straight. So
that's next words in my mouth. You also want to make sure where your golfer's at. Obviously, Harris English, every swing season event that he's played, these are finishes that aren't going to reflect what he was doing the last couple of years because he wasn't making cuts anywhere. So that has nothing really, in my opinion, to do with course fit. It just has to do with form in general. No love for Fratelli.
No, I don't know. What has he been doing recently? He's kind of been off my radar.
Nothing terrible. Dating back to swing season a little earlier in the year, he had a couple quality finishes almost 2 months ago. He's followed up with an uneventful Asian swing, but this is a guy, I say this every time about Fratelli. The thing I like about him is his stats are a little all over the place. And when you get it right, you can really get it right. And we saw that he won a tournament on tour. He gained 11 strokes recently on the approach in a single event. Things like that are just, when you have that kind of upside, it's there. He's a very good driver of the ball. But at the same time, on the flip side, you can't really bank on anything with his game. You can't say, well, we know he's going to gain with the irons. He just needs to putt. We don't know that. He could putt well and be awful tee to green or vice versa. So I don't mind him. I totally am in line with you. I think JT Poston is the play in the low 8K range for me. Another guy who won late in the year at Wyndham, just followed it up, playing just good golf consistently. I think you can easily justify that price.
Yeah, I'm with you. And just kind of a side note, the one thing that I am struggling with this weekend, I mean, thank God this is a course that we know and has a specific type of player that does well here. We don't have really strokes gained data. The last event that had strokes gained data was the Houston Open. So, we've had the CJ Cup, the Zozo, the HSBC/Bermuda Championship. I mean, that's 3 weeks in a row plus an off week of no strokes gained. We just have the finishes, but I love to see how guys attain that finish. Were they good off the tee? Were they good on approach? Good, bad putting? And without those numbers, it kind of makes things it kind of muddies the waters a little bit for me. It's just hard to just look back at just raw finishes without the data behind them. So that's the one thing I am struggling with this week. Absolutely.
It's just, it comes with this time of the golf season. First of all, we have a lot of guys playing different places. There's European tournaments that some guys are playing in. There's bootleg Bermuda tournaments. Then we've got the Asian swing. It gets a little hectic. You don't know what guys have been up to. And then you have other people like Kuchar. I don't know what he's been doing. So it makes it difficult, but you just kind of have to infer. You can play the ownership game a bit and take some stabs. And then we rev up to a more consistent, string of play after the little break. We'll get into all that a little down the road, but working kind of I feel like this is the midway point of pricing. Now we break into the sevens. We got guys like Brian Gay, HV3, Sabatini, who I expect will be popular, GMAC, Munoz, Brian Harmon. What say you?
Oh, yeah. We're going right back to Brian Harmon.
Let's do it.
I mean, I think he's a phenomenal play. We had him all lined up at Houston for the win. We were just going to drop the hammer on him. And of course he missed the cut. Awesome fashion. But leading into that, 3rd at the Greenbrier, 14th at Sanderson Farms, 18th at Shriners. It was just building up to amazing things at Houston, and he missed the cut. But on the whole, he's gaining almost a stroke with the ball striking in those events, I think. And I mean, that's over 14 measured rounds. I think that's something else I wanted to mention you should look at if you're looking at season-long strokes gained stats. Is some guys have only played one shot league event. These stats might only be based on 4 rounds. So you also want to take a look at how many measured rounds they're off of. Some guys have just played more than others, played more events that have shot length. So, we have a decent sample size of him, and the ball striking has been great. he's another guy like Kistner. The course history just isn't good here. I mean, he has one T26. That's his best finish in 6 starts here. But again, the same thing with Kistner. There's just no reason behind that. I just don't see why this course would not fit him. And I think you're just getting a great discount coming off the miscut with the poor course history. $1,600 cheaper than Knox. That's just crazy to me. I mean, they're very, very similar players.
No doubt at all.
I'm ready to just go right back to Harman. I love this spot for him.
I do too. And again, it becomes easier. You don't love to see it. It's going to keep ownership down, but at the same time, the other good thing about this, we're not paying $10,000 for him. That would be a tougher pill to swallow, even though I think you could justify it because he is a very good player. He's got win equity, but you're getting a middling price range here. He could be your third, fourth man in. And for that, now you're looking more like, okay, find the weekend and then we'll see. That's a pretty easy sell for me. Everyone else around him, like Bryce Garnett, like, is that a thing? He's another one with fantastic course history. To me, I'm not really sold on him. I don't know where his game is at. He's had okay results in recent weeks, but for me, I think people are going to recognize the course history and weigh it a little too heavily.
Yeah, we're not going to Bryce Garnett. He's been playing okay, but really he seems a little bit out of his league here with guys. Harman could win this event. Rory Sabatini's been playing great for a prolonged period of time. We got a guy like Henley at 7,500, not playing great, but this is another guy I think the course sets up well, a guy that's won at Honda, a guy that's won at Sony. Just not doing much this year, but I would take Russell Henley over Bryce Garnett any day of the week. Yeah,
I think I'm with you there. The next couple, this is a real interesting range, though. Just listen to these names. We got Bo Hostler, Scott Piercy, ZJ, and I'm putting Harry Higgs in there, who was my favorite of the four. But do you have a preference? Are you going to go with the iron specialist like Piercy? Zach Johnson's just not good, so that makes it difficult. What do you think?
I think Zach Johnson died like 2 years ago secretly, and they just
Sixth Sense style.
There's like some imposter that's taken over him because boy, you're gonna make me pick one of these guys. I guess if you're gonna make me pick one of these guys, it's Piercy, just because he's kind of a wild man, not a great course fit, but he actually has decent history here. 6th last year, 4th a couple years ago. He's got a T16 here. You kind of don't know what you're going to get out of Piercy, but you can kind of embrace that in a guy at a cheaper price at lower ownership that, once every however many times out is just going to kind of set it on fire. So if I had to go here, I guess it would be Piercy, but I don't love any of these guys. I mean, Higgs, well, you're going to have to lay it out with Higgs. He was great in Bermuda. I know that. But.
So, I mean, for me, really, all it is that he was good on the coastal track in Bermuda. He's got some miscuts in there, but when he makes the cut, he's been getting in contention relative to what you're looking for this price, 19th, 23rd, and then, second at Bermuda. When you look at the stats, and again, this is, I think, to speak to what you were just talking about, we have to be careful about this because this is a Korn Ferry guy. He doesn't have a ton of measured rounds, but from what we see early, it looks like a pretty standard good ball striker, not a great scrambler. Putting is coming and going. As far as I can tell, but I think he sets up just fine. Keep it in the fairway, lean on that, and go from there. And again, seeing what he did at Bermuda, I know that was a weaker field, but that is a similar layout. So I think you can look there for a little boom or bust in a range that I don't like a lot of these guys. I know people Streelman with the short irons. That is a thing, but I'm not really there, to be honest.
No, I'm not there either. Okay. What about, so go down to 7,300. Your boy Zhizun Zhang was on fire, played the HSBC and was T38. But that was such a stronger field than
that doesn't mean anything to me with a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was really, really good entering there. 4th at Houston, 16th Shriners, 7th at Safeway. The ball striking was really good, plus .882. Which is pretty phenomenal. I mean, I think 7,300 is a good price for him. I don't know if people will be off of him. I don't know. It's hard to figure out what to do with that T38. I mean, on paper, it just looks okay, but it was such, I mean, an insanely strong field compared to what he's been playing in and compared to this field.
Yeah, I mean, it's someone again. That's another thing about this time of year that's difficult. Like if you get into that and you come in 50th against the best golfers in the world, it doesn't look good. But then you have to realize, like, if he just didn't play that event, what would we be saying? I do think that I take that stuff very, very lightly. It's good that he got in, and I go back to where he was in the swing season, which was playing really good golf. Um, he is next to some characters. He's got Kyle Stanley, Charlie Hoffman, got names that are certainly familiar to anyone that plays on DK and just PGA golf in general. But at the same time, I don't really like that. You mentioned Hoffman with the ridiculous history. Kyle Stanley also plays this course bad, and I think there's a reason for that.
Because he's a bad golfer. I think that's why he plays it bad.
Also that. Si Woo, what do you make of him? I mean, he's been churning out middling results. Course history is actually pretty good. We know he can get crazy hot with the irons. I don't mind it. I may have some exposure, and I normally don't.
I mean, the course fit is perfect for him because, won the Wyndham, won the Players. I was in a playoff at Harbortown. Course fit is perfect. It just almost feels like he's completely flipped in his style of golfer. And like all of a sudden now it's just like middling performances every week, nothing great, nothing terrible. When in the past it was like miscut, T3, miscut, T2, and that was not almost, it's way more valuable in DFS than just coming in T40 every week.
It is amazing how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know, in a attempt to gain consistency, he lost some of the real high-end iron play, but I haven't seen it out of him.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, and that's, again, why I sometimes encourage stepping back just a little bit. And I'm guilty of it just as much as everyone else. If you get in these mindsets of like, oh, this guy is this type of player, and then Paul Casey can't win until he wins, and Si Woo, he misses 8 cuts in a row and then he wins, and he hasn't been doing that lately. But this is a spot, like I said, and you did too. It's a great fit. So that's someone to consider. What about kind of just looking down? The rest of the sevens is pretty. I don't know. It's not inspiring. I'll say that much. Brian Stewart, I looked at. Doc Redman, I think, is a bad fit for this. List is a bad fit.
Whoa. I'm going to stop you right there, Doc Redman.
What? I'll go, please.
This is not the prototypical course for him. That's for sure. But I mean, he's 12th on tour in driving accuracy this year. He just does it, and he can also hit the ball 300 and whatever yards. I mean, he's got distance too, but he's hitting fairways. I agree, not the best course fit, but I'd rather take the shot with Redmond at 71 than Hovland at 11K. I mean,
agree with that.
The strokes gained have been amazing, plus 1.4 ball striking this year. The putter has kind of been the problem. He was 35th at Bermuda, 13th at Houston, and even the finishes that haven't been great. I mean, the ball striking very good, and like I said, he's hitting fairways, 12th driving accuracy, he's 25th in strokes gained approach. I like Doc Redman at 7,100.
Okay,
so
you see,
don't say bad things about him.
I just worry that he can't. I mean, his formula right now is truly separating off the tee. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that here. I'm not saying the rest of his game is weak, but more often than not, especially with his better finishes, he has gained a boatload off the tee. And here, I don't know if he can do that as much. We'll see. I mean, it's a very small sample size. He's only played a couple of courses that I would draw a correlation to, and it hasn't been great, but he's a young guy, and that can change in a hurry. So I totally get the merit of, if you're going to take a shot with someone atypical, it's better to do it where you're looking, he makes the cut and comes in 30th. It's a lot better of him than Hovland. That's for certain. I think we all agree with that. Not to say that that's how it works, but still. Did you consider Brian Stewart? I know that's a name that we started talking about a little bit. He's got some interesting course history. It's a guy who can get crazy hot with the putter.
No, I don't think I ever can get there with Brian Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, he had a little run and then it regressed a bit. He was bad last couple times out. So I just, it's not the worst field in the world. We talked about that at the top of the show, but it's also not, it gets pretty bad pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an awful field, but like you said, it's not great. But then also when you take into account the type of course it is, I mean, this could legitimately be an event where you're looking at the leaderboard on Sunday and it's like the top 6 guys are all below like 8K or something ridiculous. Like it's just one of those events. I mean, it fits a certain type of player, and that type of player is not any of the 10 best players in this field.
It certainly opens the door for really. It's something that I like to discuss certainly on tomorrow's show, and I will be back at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, breaking it down lineup construction and answering all your questions, chat, where you have certainly more win equity in the bottom of your lineups than I think you normally do. So it opens up some room where, if you can just get some stability up top, it can still be effective. But it's just such an odd thing that the guys up top have a lot of risk just on the way they play. And tracks like this, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it neutralize guys better than Hovland. I'll say that, like DJ at Heritage style. That it can be bad. It's not to say it can't work, but really keep that in mind this week. Before we dive into the really real egregious sickos, do want to say, as I always do, if you can hit the like button, that would really help us out. I know golf is not in full swing right now. We are in the borderline off season. We got a lot of things going on, but honestly, it helps the company as a whole. And I know everyone watching probably is watching all our other stuff. And if you're not, you should be. Our NBA, our NFL, NHL, all those things, ton of resources in front and behind the paywall. If you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code JazzRaz, you get 50% off that first month. You can come on in, get the tools from Alex himself and the entire team. So really encourage you to do that. There's no better time because golf is actually going to come back. And then we'll have some things going on. But for now, we are stuck talking about Mayakoba, which I know you don't mind. But
you say it so negatively.
I just wish we had strokes gain data. It's so hard to infer what's going on with some of these guys at this time of the year. And that's the one grievance I have. And shot tracker, because I like to complain.
You analytics guys in your spreadsheets.
What can I say, man?
Old school golf handicapping here. We gotta
take a
current form, course history, and your eyeballs.
And sprinkle that magic. So yeah, you know what? It works. But again, people are hitting doubles out there. Congrats, Baroff. That's just insane. I can't
congratulate him.
I'm Team Schwab. He lost again in horrific fashion. Did you see that? Lost in the 6-man playoff to Ty Hatton. Very sad.
No, I only watch real golf.
You missed. Wow, that's offensive to everyone at the Turkish Airlines. Working down now, we got Taylor Gooch, Nick Watney types, Matt Jones, Sam Ryder. These are the kind of names we're going to see in the lower ranges. It's not to say they're not playable, but of course they come with serious risk. What do you make of this?
It's ugly. It's very ugly below 7K. What about Austin Cook at 6,700?
So it's interesting that you say that because I have my premium article, which is available on the site. And I was looking for a guy in this range, and the two that I came down to, it was Austin Cook and Kevin Chappell. Ultimately, I went with Chappell just because he's just clearly a better player. But Austin Cook is a guy that, when you get it right, you get paid off. And we see that even in this snapshot. He was 17th in Houston. He was 14th at Greenbrier. 3 miscuts in between. He can go crazy low, makes a lot of birdies. And I think this is a fine course for him. So I totally get the merit in playing him.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much summed it up with his finishes, 3 miscuts in a row, decent finishes on either side of there. The ball striking has been good, 14 measured rounds plus 0.6, which doesn't sound great, but I mean, that's, anything over a half stroke gain when you combine off the tee and on approach. I mean, that's very solid, especially for a guy like him at this price. Course fit, perfect, won the RSM. We look at his best finishes, career, RSM win, T9 at the Valspar, T4 at the Barbasol, T5 at the Greenbrier. I mean, these are all, fairly somewhat similar courses. He's just more of a short track specialist. So I like it here. I mean, there's risk involved. I don't think it's not a safe play, but like you said, when he's on, he seems to be on. And I mean, the ball striking's been good, and I think the course fit is really good.
What do you make of Chappell? He's someone that, like I said, I can stomach just purely on that. We know that his price is going to rise. It's just a fact of it. He's made 2 out of the 3 cuts during the comeback. He hasn't looked great by any stretch, but to me, it's just a pure price play, and I can justify it just based on long-term talent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd get there because I feel like even if he was playing well, this really wouldn't be the course for him. And he's just, I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's like he shot the 59 or whatever, and like after that,
That was the weirdest.
it has not been good. From a talent standpoint, obviously, yes, you're getting a much more talented golfer at 6,700, and we've kind of talked about this with him in the past. He could very easily be not 9+ K in this field. I just haven't seen it out of him, and I don't think that this is a great course fit for him. So I don't think I'll be going there.
Yeah, I mean, I think where we differ is I don't think the course is that bad for him. He can get some short irons in his hand, club down, do his thing, and again, he's $100 cheaper than Brandon Wu.
Who?
Okay. It's just I'm gonna go to that. It's not without risk, of course, but even you look at someone like JJ Spawn, who I'm a huge fan of. This is a great course for him. The finishes reflect that, but he is playing so incredibly bad that to me it's a pretty easy fade. I would rather go to some of these other guys who at least have shown signs recently of playing quality golf, and someone like Chappell. In a talent standpoint, someone like Austin Cook from an upside standpoint, both ahead of a guy like Spawn for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I love Spawn, but I mean, you have to look at the numbers. You have to look behind the finishes, and we're in a prolonged stretch for him where no good finishes, and the numbers behind those bad finishes, those aren't good either. So it's not like, oh, he's striking it great, but he's not putting, and that's why the finishes aren't there. He's just doing nothing well. And this is more than, it's been a couple events. I mean, we should overlook one bad event. We could overlook 2 bad events. But when you start stacking together, I mean, we're going back many events in a row where he just hasn't been good. And at some point, you have to know, you got to know when to fold them. And it's like, you just can't keep going back to the well with a guy like Spawn when the numbers just aren't there. I mean, I love the guy, but he just doesn't have it right now.
And people will get, not a lot of people, but there will be a handful of people, especially because we don't have strokes gain data, that are going to scan and say, I need someone cheap. Oh, this guy stands out. I mean, if you're just looking at the course history, he's by far the best play down here. It's not even close. He's going to get some people just on that alone. And I think that's a little dicey. So caution there. You know about Callum Hill? Is that a real thing?
I mean, official world golf ranking is good. Crushing the Challenge Tour.
Crushing it, yeah.
Which, if people aren't really familiar with that, it's like the web.com tour, the Corn Ferry Tour of Europe. And when he's played on the European Tour, he had some decent finishes. I believe he played the Alfred Dunhill, and was it the BMW PGA T17?
At Wentworth, I believe.
Yeah, T17 and T26. Young kid, up and coming guy. He's been playing well. I think there's a lot of talent there. I mean, that's the extent of my knowledge on him at 6,600. I mean, it's cheap, but I don't know. He's an unknown really for me.
Same. I'd be lying if I told you I have a good grasp on what kind of course he would excel at. I will say, I personally think this does have some components that would suit more European golfers, just in terms of being at a coastal, more technical layout. And he has shown, I always try to preach this when we're talking about guys, these new guys. This guy's played against similar competition than this over in Europe. I know it's a little different because this is the PGA Tour, but he has shown here and there that he can hang in no problem. So I'm not omitting him just on merit alone. I'm going to have some exposure probably to him, especially if he's not going to be even remotely popular.
Yeah, I mean, the price is right. And, just for it's from a talent standpoint, it's like, he could be one of those guys you're getting on early, and 2 years from now, we're seeing him at 9K. I really don't know.
No, neither do I.
But I'll tell you what, if I had, I would much prefer some of these guys at 6,700. But below guys like Austin Cook, I mean, I don't have a strong feeling about anybody. So I mean, if you're gonna take a dart throw below 6,700, I wouldn't have a problem with him.
So, but yeah, below, I mean, here we either get into guys that are really pretty hard to stomach, like Wes Roach, who played well in Bermuda, good iron player, but I don't know about all that, or names that we know that are just playing terrible. CT Pan, Brendan Steele, I don't think is even remotely in play. So I got a couple things to ask you. One, Scott Brown has some decent course history here. I don't really understand why, though. Maybe it's a club down thing and he avoids the spraying. That's all I got.
Maybe it's a pass Palom thing, because doesn't he crush it at the Puerto Rico Open?
Him and so Pat Perez, I should have mentioned that. Pat Perez is like the pass palm god. He loves that. Maybe it is that. I didn't think about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Scott Brown plays great at short courses with god-awful fields. So maybe that's why he's done well here. But he hasn't really been showing too much either.
That's generous of you. He's been bad. Real bad. Same with Duffner.
God, Duffner is just, I want to play him so bad. 6,400. His putting he's one of those guys, and we've talked about this before. There's bad putters that can sometimes hold it together and sometimes even have a decent putting performance. And then there's guys that just go out and literally shoot themselves in the foot every single round. And that's what he's doing right now, because the ball striking is good. 0.9 plus 0.9, one of the best in the field. But boy, it's just so bad with the putter. And I don't even think he cares anymore, to be honest. I know it's a bad thing to say. He just looks defeated out there. It's
really, there's been so many times in the past year where I've looked at Duffner and I said, you know what? I'm gonna try to buy early here. This is a good course. It's not too long. If he just putts average, and it's not even close. So until he does something, I'm gonna just let if anyone else wants to do that, you're a braver person than me. I have no interest there. So, and this is another person, I probably won't get there, but it's worth mentioning. So Chris Kirk is back. He took a hiatus, had to address some personal issues. Good to see him back on the tour, but he hasn't played in a long time now. Who knows where his game is at? I don't know if he knows. Are you going to go there at 6,400?
No, I don't think I'm going to go there. First event back from the long layoff. It's just so weird. As like a side note, it's like, we play DFS and we bet on these guys and they play terribly sometimes. And it's like you don't know what's going on with these guys. It's kind of crazy. It's like we talk shit about him. And then it's like Chris Kirk, we probably talked about how horribly he was playing right at the very end there. And then the guy actually has some personal problems he has to take care of. So it kind of.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we probably just blasted him right at the very end.
Hey, I'm a Chris Kirk guy. I've always been a fan of him. He had some troubling results there. And it's very true. I mean, they're real people. They have lives and stuff happens, and it certainly reflects in their golf game. We just can't know that stuff. So we'll have to do it. But yeah, I'm going to let other people sort that out. Is there anyone, as we'll get out of here in a couple minutes, looking at the real bottom here? Robbie Shelton is the guy that people were on, but the results have kind of cratered. Robert Streb is down here, Ace Ventura, Tyler Duncan. I don't see a lot, do you?
No, not really. I mean, Duncan was decent at Bermuda. He was T18. Boy, that's about it. I don't know. Your boy Patrick Rogers, Chris Stroud as a third, a fourth, and a fifth here. I mean, I'm just like literally looking for anything. I don't see myself going below 6,700 for a couple reasons. First, it's terrible down here. The players are bad. They're just not good. There's not good plays. And second of all, what are we saving money for? We're going to save money to pay up for 11-2 Victor Hovland or 11-4 Kuchar, who hasn't played in 8 weeks. I mean, there's no reason to do that. I just don't see it. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be going down here.
So there's two reasons I usually kind of think that why you'd pay down for someone. The most prevalent is what you just said. It's an opportunity cost. Like, I want to get Rory and I want to get, Rose. Okay, so I punt one spot. I don't love the guy, but I think he can make the cut. Then there is a minority position where you play a guy down here specifically because you want to play that guy. That is the only reason that you should play someone down here this week. The first reason, in my opinion, doesn't exist because there is no opportunity cost to going to get the guys up top. It's really easy to do it. And I don't see any difference between those guys up top. In fact, I think some of them are actually worse plays than the next range. So the only reason I would go down here is if I identify someone that I specifically want to play on their own merit, not because it's saving me any money. There is nobody down here that I see to do that. Patrick Rodgers would be as close to that, but I'm just not there. I think this is a very good course for him, but he has not had any results that have shown anything outside of maybe he finds the weekend and comes in like 40th. You obviously are going to need more than that in big field tournaments.
I can't believe you didn't try and tout Ben Martin. I'm disappointed. You thought about it. You were trying to figure something out.
You know, it's funny, when I was looking through it, I was just like, all right, Ben Martin, 28th at Bermuda. And then I realized that was someone named Ben Taylor. And I'm like, oh, man, now I can't even use that to merit consideration. Bermuda Benny, it's coming. It's just not here. It's a long year. Cut him some slack. But do I even dare ask if you bet anybody?
I did. I bet somebody, and then it's one of those things where you bet a guy and then the whole rest of the world. I bet Harris English at 50-1. And then literally every person on Twitter has also bet him. He's probably down to like 16-1 at this point.
How about that closing
yeah, we get the closing line value. If you could eat closing line value, I'd be doing pretty well. So I don't think you should bet Harris English anymore.
No, yeah, I mean, I looked for me, the guy that kind of caught my eye, and I know he just won. It would be very impressive if he won again. JT Poston sitting, 40-ish, 50-ish to 1 out there in the market. I do think this is a guy that has some win upside when he gets going. Same with Fertelli. They kind of caught my eye, but all in all, it's all over the map. I think it is wide open, as you talked about right off the top. There's not a massive win equity that you need to dodge, but at the same time, I didn't see a ton that I liked because the guys that Aaron Wise and those type, it's not to say they can't do it, and he was really good in Bermuda, but man, it's tough to go against the grain when you know that their best club and their best asset is neutralized right off the top.
Yeah, I mean, we're really getting it's a new era of golf. I mean, it really is. If you go back and look at leaderboards from, like the mid 2000s, 2005 to 2010, I mean, you'll see a lot of super short hitters at some of these courses. And then now it's just those guys, there's less and less of these short hitter type of players that are competitive. And I think, 5 years from now, it's 90% of the players are going to be Aaron Wise and Hovland just smashing it off the tee and figuring it out from there. So, I mean, it's really trying to figure out what to do with these guys is interesting. I guess the thing you have to think of, there's so many of them in this field. Sure, a couple of them are going to play well, and it's going to be easy to point and say, oh, look, you said it was a short hitter's course, and look, Aaron Wise and Scheffler are near the top. But a lot more of these guys are going to fail at a track like this than at a different type of track, I guess is my point.
There's also in my opinion, only a couple of really technical layouts that I seriously consider, and this and Heritage are two of them. You can't be messing around. You just can't. I know Rahm, he sticks out in terms of someone that just bucks the trend. He doesn't care. He's just no, I'm pulling driver. He did that. I think it was Valspar. And it was just this is insane. This guy is just pulling driver all over the place. And he showed it can be effective here and there. But more often than not, it's just the holes are not cut where you can do it. It just becomes a different type of golf. And the way the layout is the only defense, because I think you're right. Even this year, when I dug in to the Korn Ferry guys, they can almost all exclusively, especially the new first time on tour, every one of them is strong with the driver. You can't get here unless you're strong with the driver now.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think five years from now, we're just going to be looking at 144 guys that just smash it off the tee, and that's about it.
It becomes, honestly, everyone's going to have the distance. It's just going to be, there'll be a handful that have the the total driving where they're not Andrew Lupe. Sorry, guy.
And even when this was a while ago, or not a while ago, maybe a couple months ago, like even Tiger talked about it. It's honestly it's the optimal way to play.
Of course,
this day is just smash it off the tee, and you're gonna have bad weeks, but your good weeks are gonna be really good. And it's much more important to have 4 really high finishes than it is to have 25 T30s, which he said 10, 20 years ago, guys were trying to be consistent. Guys were trying to hit fairways. Guys were trying to make cuts. But all you need is a couple really high finishes to get the money, get the FedEx Cup points. And it's boom or bust is the way to play.
That's what I wanted to. And we're going to wrap it up in a minute. But just remember this. I know nobody will. But when you look come playoff time, there will be a couple guys and you are going to be like, how are they safely in the 125? They've missed like 8 cuts in a row. It's because they came in third twice. The entire season is tailored to risk reward, similar to DFS in a way, where give me 4 missed cuts in a top 5 over 33rd all 5 weeks. It just bears it out that way. And players are saying, I know that if I take this aggressive strategy, I'm gonna, it's honestly nice because if I get cut, you move on to the next week.
You don't have to play anymore.
You don't have to play. And when I get it going, I'm going to compete to win rather than grinding it out and just, the scores reflected. And I think this will be another week, 20 under certainly in play. You cannot, you can't be conservative anymore because somebody else is going to go nuts. And when you have 50 of them, someone's going to play well, and that's going to push that winning score up. So keep that in mind. I do think it has some bearing on DFS, specifically with guys going to attack, birdie or better percentage. Of course, the things we look for as players, you need the streaks, you need the bonuses.
100%, man. This was a good conversation.
We're dropping knowledge. I hope, Chad, that you appreciate that as much as we do, because this is actually a really fun show for not my Super Bowl. I know it's yours, but I got other priorities in the golf world.
I'll be doing an Ask Me Anything in Slack from 4:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. So
that's Pacific time. You know how it is. Yeah, Tim is raring to go. So hop in there, ask him weird questions. That's what it's there for. And like I said, we have so many tools behind the paywall, not just with golf, with all the shows, all the sports. So we hope you guys will come on in, and we do appreciate Chad hanging out with us as you always do. We're going to get on out of here. We do have another tournament next week, RSM, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we got that. Then the schedule gets a little crazy before the real season starts. But I will be back tomorrow night with Jason Roslin breaking down this tournament in full, lineup construction, ownership, and everything you need to know about the weather. So stop on by there. Good luck. We hope to see you in Slack and behind the paywall. And we will see you next week for the RSM.